Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his small ship through the floating metal pieces. Space was full of broken things here. Ships that had been destroyed in the war floated like ghosts in the darkness. Some were big warships. Others were small fighters. All of them were dead now. His ship was called the Lucky Star, though Jake often wondered if the name was a joke. The ship was old and made strange noises when he pushed it too hard. The paint was peeling off the hull, and the air recycler smelled like old socks. But it was his ship, and it kept him alive in the cold emptiness of space. Jake made his living by finding useful things in the wrecks. Sometimes he found valuable metals. Sometimes he found working computers or weapons that he could sell. It was not glamorous work, but it paid enough to keep him fed and his ship running. The war had been going on for as long as Jake could remember. The Zephyrians and the Krillians had been fighting each other for decades. Nobody seemed to know why it started anymore. They just kept killing each other, leaving behind fields of broken ships for people like Jake to pick through. His scanner beeped softly. There was something ahead that still had power. Jake leaned forward in his pilot seat and squinted through the window. He could see a small fighter ship spinning slowly in the darkness. It was painted in the blue and silver colors of the Zephyrian Empire. The ship's hull was cracked open like a broken egg. Jake could see sparks flying from damaged systems inside. Whatever had hit it hard. The fighter was dying, its power systems failing one by one. Jake almost flew past it. Zephyrian ships were dangerous to approach, even broken ones. The aliens were known for their fierce temper and their love of fighting. They looked down on other species, especially humans. Most humans stayed far away from anything Zephyrian, but then Jake saw movement inside the damaged cockpit. Someone was still alive in there. He stopped his ship and stared at the broken fighter. The smart thing would be to leave. The safe thing would be to pretend he had never seen it. But Jake had never been good at doing the smart thing. He activated his communication system and tried to contact the fighter. All he got was static. The ship's communication array was probably damaged. Jake could see the pilot moving weakly inside the cockpit, but there was no way to talk to them. The fighter's life support systems were failing. Jake could see the warning lights flashing red through the cracks in the hull. Whoever was inside would be dead soon if someone did not help them. Jake made his decision. He maneuvered the Lucky Star close to the damaged fighter and activated his docking system. It was risky. Zephyrian ships sometimes had automatic defense systems that would fire on approaching vessels. But the fighter was too damaged to be dangerous. Now, the docking process was difficult. The fighter was spinning slowly, and Jake had to match its rotation to make contact. His old ship groaned and shook as the docking clamps engaged. For a moment, Jake thought the whole thing would fall apart. But the clamps held. Jake put on his environmental suit and entered the airlock. The fighter's interior was a mess. Broken equipment sparked and smoked. The air was thin and tasted of ozone and fear. Jake had to squeeze through twisted metal to reach the cockpit. The pilot was trapped in the command chair. Jake had never seen a Zephyrian up close before. The alien was tall and lean, with skin that looked like it was covered in small blue-green scales. The pilot's armor was black and silver, decorated with symbols that Jake did not recognize. The alien was unconscious but still breathing. Jake could see that the pilot was badly injured. There was blue blood on the armor, and the alien's breathing was shallow and rapid. Jake worked quickly to free the pilot from the damaged chair. The Zephyrian was heavier than he expected, and the armor made them awkward to carry. But Jake managed to get the alien through the twisted wreckage and into his own ship. He carried the pilot to his small medical bay. The Lucky Star was not equipped for serious medical emergencies, but Jake had basic life support equipment. He carefully removed the alien's helmet and connected them to his ship's oxygen system. The Zephyrian's face was angular and sharp, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. Even unconscious, the alien looked proud and fierce. Jake had heard that Zephyrians were warriors from birth, trained to fight from childhood. Looking at this one, he could believe it. Jake did what he could to stabilize the pilot's condition. He cleaned the wounds he could see and gave the alien pain medication. The medical scanner showed internal injuries, But there was nothing Jake could do about those with his limited equipment. For 3 days, the Zephyrian pilot remained unconscious. Jake stayed close, monitoring the alien's condition and making sure the life support systems kept working. He talked to the unconscious pilot sometimes, telling stories about his home on Earth or his adventures in space. He was not sure why he did it, but it made him feel less alone. On the 4th day, the pilot woke up. Jake was checking the medical readings when he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned to see golden eyes staring at him with sharp intelligence. The alien tried to sit up, then fell back with a groan of pain. "Easy there," Jake said, moving to the bedside. "You were hurt pretty bad. Better take it slow." The alien stared at him for a long moment. When the pilot spoke, it was in a language Jake did not understand. The words sounded like music, but dangerous music, like a song about storms and battles. Jake activated his universal translator. The device was old and sometimes made mistakes, but it was better than nothing. The alien's words came through in heavily accented English. "Who are you?" the pilot asked. "Where is my ship?" "I'm Jake Morrison," Jake said. "Your ship was destroyed. I pulled you out of the wreckage." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You are human, yes." "Why did you save me?" Jake shrugged. "You needed help." "Seemed like the right thing to do." The alien tried to sit up again, moving more carefully this time. Jake helped support the pilot's shoulders. The Zephyrian was stronger than Jake had expected, even while injured. "I am Commander Zara Velther of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet," the alien said. "I do not understand why you would risk yourself for an enemy. Are we enemies?" Jake asked. "I don't remember declaring war on anyone." Zara stared at him as if he had said something impossible. "Your species and mine have been at war for generations." "Have we?" Jake said. "I thought you were at war with the Krillians." "We are at war with all who oppose the Empire," Zara said. "That includes humans." Jake considered this. "Well, I guess I missed that memo. You want some water? You look thirsty." Zara's expression showed confusion. She had expected threats or demands or fear. She had not expected kindness from a human. In her culture, mercy was often seen as weakness. Enemies were to be defeated, not helped. Jake brought her water in a plastic cup. Zara drank carefully, watching him over the rim. She was trying to understand what kind of game he was playing. In her experience, nobody did anything without wanting something in return. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing," Jake said. "I just want you to get better so I can find you a safe place to go." Zara set down the empty cup. "You expect no payment? No reward?" "Nope." "Then you are either very foolish or very strange," Zara said. Jake smiled. "Probably both." Despite herself, Zara found herself almost smiling back. This human was unlike anything she had been taught to expect. He seemed to have no agenda, no hidden motives. He had simply saved her life because he thought it was the right thing to do. It was a concept that would take her some time to understand. Over the next few days, Zara grew stronger. Jake helped her move around the ship when she was ready. He showed her how his systems worked and where everything was located. The Lucky Star was small compared to Zephyrian warships, but it was clean and well-maintained. Zara watched Jake work with growing interest. He fixed broken equipment with creativity instead of brute force. When the water recycler started making strange noises, Jake did not replace it with a new one. Instead, he took it apart, found the problem, and fixed it with spare parts from other machines. "Your people are strange," Zara said one morning as she watched Jake repair a damaged sensor array. "You solve problems like puzzle games." Jake looked up from his work. "What do you mean?" "Zephyrians would have simply replaced the broken part with a new one. You make old things work again. New parts are expensive," Jake said. "Besides, I like figuring out how things work." Zara tilted her head. "You enjoy the challenge?" "Sure, every broken thing is different. You have to think about what went wrong and how to fix it." This was a new concept for Zara. In her culture, problems were solved through strength and direct action. If something was broken, you destroyed it and built something better. The idea of finding joy in repair and restoration was foreign to her. Jake shared his meals with her. The food was simple but filling. He told her stories about his life while they ate. He talked about growing up on Earth, about his parents who had died when he was young, about his decision to leave home and explore space. "Why did you leave your homeworld?" Zara asked. "I wanted to see what was out there," Jake said. "Earth is nice, but it's just one planet. The universe is huge and full of amazing things." "Were you not afraid?" Jake shrugged. "A little. But fear is just fear. You can't let it stop you from living." Zara found this attitude fascinating. Zephyrians were taught to overcome fear through discipline and training. They learned to ignore pain and push through danger. But Jake seemed to accept fear as a natural part of life, something to acknowledge but not be controlled by. As her strength returned, Zara began to demonstrate some of her combat training. She moved with fluid grace, her body flowing like water even in the cramped spaces of the ship. Jake watched in amazement as she performed exercises that seemed to defy gravity. "All Zephyrians learn to fight?" Jake asked. "From childhood," Zara replied. "Combat is how we prove our worth. The strongest lead, the weak follow." "What about people who are good at other things, like art or science or fixing machines?" Zara paused in her exercises. "Those are secondary skills. Useful, but not important for leadership." "That seems like a waste," Jake said. "Some of the smartest people I know couldn't win a fight if their life depended on it. But they can build amazing things or solve problems that nobody else can figure out." "Weakness is weakness," Zara said, but she sounded less certain than before. "Is it? Or is it just a different kind of strength?" Zara had no answer for that. In her world, strength was measured in combat ability and military success. The idea that there might be other forms of strength was challenging everything she had been taught. One evening, as they shared dinner, Zara began to talk about her homeworld. She described Zephyros Prime, a planet of soaring crystal cities and vast training grounds. She spoke of the great houses, powerful families that controlled different regions of the planet. "Each house has its own warriors," she explained. "We compete for honor and resources. The strongest houses rule, the weaker ones serve." "Sounds like a lot of fighting," Jake said. "Fighting is life," Zara replied. "Through combat we prove our worth. Through victory we earn respect." "What about cooperation, working together to solve problems?" Zara looked puzzled. "Why would strong warriors need to cooperate with weaker ones?" "Because sometimes the best solutions come from combining different skills," Jake said. "A warrior might be brave, but an engineer might know how to build better weapons. A scientist might discover new materials, and an artist might find beautiful ways to use them." "You speak of impossible things," Zara said. "The strong do not need help from the weak." "Maybe," Jake said, "but what if the weak aren't really weak? What if they're just strong in different ways?" This conversation continued over several days. Zara found herself thinking about Jake's words even when they were not talking. She watched him work, noting how he solved problems through patience and creativity rather than force. She saw how he treated every broken machine with respect, as if it were a living thing that deserved care. Jake told her about human history, about how his species had learned to work together to accomplish great things. He spoke of artists and scientists, of builders and dreamers. He described cities built through cooperation, problems solved through teamwork, and conflicts resolved through discussion instead of warfare. "Your people sound weak," Zara said, but there was less conviction in her voice than before. "Do we?" Jake asked. "We've survived wars, diseases, and disasters. We've built cities and traveled to the stars. We've created art and music and stories that last for thousands of years. Maybe we're not as weak as you think." Zara considered this. She had been taught that humans were inferior, that their lack of natural weapons and armor made them easy prey for stronger species. But Jake had saved her life when logic said he should have left her to die. He had shown her kindness when she would have expected hostility. "You confuse me, Jake Morrison," she said finally. "You act in ways that make no sense according to everything." "I know. Maybe what you know is incomplete," Jake suggested gently. You suggest that my entire culture is wrong? I suggest that maybe there's more than one way to be strong, Jake said. Maybe there's more than one way to live. This idea was revolutionary to Zara. She had been raised to believe that Zephyrian ways were the only correct ways. The possibility that other species might have developed different, but equally valid approaches to life was something she had never considered. As the days passed, Zara began to see Jake differently. She watched him repair systems with the same focus and dedication that she brought to combat training. She saw him make decisions based on compassion rather than strength, yet those decisions seemed to work out well. In my culture, Zara said, one day, when someone saves a warrior's life, it creates a debt that must be repaid. I don't want anything from you, Jake said. You don't owe me anything. You do not understand, Zara replied. This is not about what you want. It is about honor. I'm bound by the warrior's code to repay this debt. What does that mean? It means I must grant you a boon. You may ask anything of me, and I must do my best to provide it. Jake thought about this. What if I asked you to forget about the debt? That is not possible. The debt exists whether you acknowledge it or not. I guess I'll have to think about it, Jake said. Zara nodded. Take your time. But know that this obligation will follow me until it is resolved. It is not a burden I can ignore. Jake found this concept strange. He had saved Zara because it was the right thing to do, not because he expected anything in return. The idea that his actions had created some kind of mystical debt was foreign to him, but he was beginning to understand that Zephyrian culture was built on such concepts. Honor, duty, and obligation were not just words to them. They were fundamental principles that governed every aspect of their lives. As they continued their journey through the debris field, Jake found himself thinking about the warrior's code that bound Zara. He wondered what kind of society would create such rigid rules about debt and honor. He also wondered what would happen when other Zephyrians discovered that he had saved one of their warriors. He was about to find out. Jake was checking the navigation systems when alarms started blaring throughout the Lucky Star. He rushed to the main console and saw multiple contacts appearing on his scanner. Ships were approaching fast, and they were big. Zara! He called out. We have company. Zara appeared in the doorway, moving more quickly than she had since her injury. She looked at the scanner display, and her expression changed completely. The relaxed, almost friendly warrior Jake had come to know was gone, replaced by a cold military commander. Those are Imperial Navy vessels, she said. They have found us. Jake counted 6 ships on his scanner. They were massive compared to his small salvage vessel. Each one looked like it could destroy the Lucky Star with a single shot. Should I be worried? That depends, Zara said, moving to the communications console. Let me handle this. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the cabin, speaking in the musical but dangerous language of the Zephyrians. Jake's universal translator struggled to keep up with the rapid, formal speech. Unknown vessel, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Prepare to be boarded. Zara activated the transmitter and responded in her own language. Jake could hear the authority in her voice, the tone of someone used to giving orders and being obeyed. The conversation that followed was quick and intense. Suddenly, the threatening voice on the radio changed completely. It became respectful, almost reverent. Jake did not need a translator to understand that something important had just happened. Jake Morrison, Zara said, turning to face him. I must tell you something that will change everything. What is it? I am not just another warrior. I am the daughter of High Admiral Kethvelther, Supreme Commander of the Third Fleet. Jake stared at her. You're what? My father commands over 200 warships. He is one of the most powerful people in the Zephyrian Empire. When my fighter was destroyed, the entire fleet began searching for me. Jake felt his knees go weak. So those ships out there, are here to rescue me. And to meet the human who saved the Admiral's daughter. The next few hours passed in a blur. Jake's small ship was brought aboard the massive Zephyrian dreadnought, Stellar Conquest. The process was terrifying and amazing at the same time. The Lucky Star was lifted by powerful tractor beams and pulled into a hangar bay that could have held 50 ships his size. As they were brought aboard, Jake got his first close look at Zephyrian military technology. The hangar bay was filled with sleek fighters and armored shuttles. Everything was clean and efficient, designed for war but beautiful in its deadly precision. Zara had changed back into her military uniform, which had been cleaned and repaired by the ship's systems. She looked like a different person now, proud and formal. But when she looked at Jake, there was still warmth in her golden eyes. "Remember," she said as they prepared to disembark, "you are here as my honored guest. You saved my life, and that means something important to my people." Jake nodded, trying to calm his nerves. "Any advice for meeting your father? Be yourself," Zara said. "He will respect honesty more than false courtesy." The Admiral was waiting for them in the main hangar. Jake saw him from a distance and felt his mouth go dry. Keth Velther was huge, even by Zephyrian standards. His scales were darker than his daughter's, marked with scars that spoke of many battles. He wore armor that seemed to be made of polished black metal, decorated with symbols that Jake assumed indicated high rank. When the Admiral looked at Jake, it was with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating potential prey. Jake forced himself to stand straight and meet those fierce golden eyes. "Father," Zara said, approaching with formal military bearing, "I present Jake Morrison, the human who saved my life." The Admiral studied Jake for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding, the kind of voice that could order the destruction of planets without emotion. "So, human, you pulled my daughter from the wreckage of her fighter." "Yes, sir," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why? She needed help. I couldn't just leave her to die." The Admiral's expression was unreadable. "You risked your own safety for a stranger. An alien stranger who belongs to a species you have never met." "I guess so. You guess?" The Admiral stepped closer. "You do not know why you acted as you did?" Jake thought about it. "I know why. It was the right thing to do." "The right thing?" the Admiral repeated. "According to what standard?" "What law commanded you to save her?" "No law," Jake said. "Just ... It seemed wrong to let someone die when I could help." The Admiral exchanged a glance with his daughter. "You expected no reward?" "No payment?" "No, sir." "Then you are either very foolish or very unusual," the Admiral said. "Most beings in this galaxy would have calculated the risks and benefits before acting." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I didn't have time to think about it. She was dying." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Come, we will speak privately." Jake followed the Admiral through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The ship was like a floating city, filled with thousands of warriors and crew members. Everyone they passed stopped and saluted the Admiral with crisp military precision. They entered a large chamber that Jake assumed was the Admiral's private office. The walls were covered with star charts and battle plans. Weapons and armor from defeated enemies were displayed like trophies. "Sit," the Admiral commanded, gesturing to a chair that looked like it had been made for someone much larger than Jake. "Tell me about your species," the Admiral said, settling into his own chair. "What are humans like?" Jake was not sure how to answer that. "We're all different, I guess. Some are good, some are bad. Most are just trying to get by." "Are you warriors?" "Some of us, but most humans aren't soldiers. We have teachers and farmers and artists and engineers. All kinds of people doing all kinds of jobs." The Admiral leaned forward. "Do you have great leaders, powerful rulers who command through strength?" "We have leaders, but they're usually chosen by the people. And their power comes from laws and agreements, not just strength." "Chosen by the people?" The Admiral sounded puzzled. "The weak choose their leaders? Everyone gets to choose. Strong and weak, smart and simple, everyone has a voice." This concept seemed to fascinate the Admiral. "And this works? Your society does not collapse into chaos?" "Not usually. Sometimes we argue a lot, but we usually figure things out." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "My daughter tells me that you have shown her new ways of thinking." She says you solve problems through creativity rather than force. I'm not much of a fighter, Jake admitted. I have to find other ways to deal with problems. Yet you succeeded where force might have failed. You saved her life through compassion and skill, not through superior firepower. Jake shrugged. I just did what needed to be done. Perhaps, the Admiral said. But what you did has created a debt that must be repaid. In our culture, to save a warrior's life places that warrior in your debt. When the warrior is my daughter, that debt extends to me as well. I don't need anything from you, Jake said. Nevertheless, the debt exists. You may not understand our ways, but we are bound by them. You will be granted a boon, Jake Morrison. You may ask for anything within my power to give. Jake felt overwhelmed. What kind of anything? Wealth? Technology, information, weapons, a fleet of ships, territory to rule. Name your price, Jake's mind raced. He could ask for technology that would advance human civilization by centuries. He could request wealth beyond imagination. He could demand weapons that would make humanity a major power in the galaxy, but as he looked at the Admiral's scarred face and thought about the war raging across the stars, Jake realized that he wanted something different. Can I think about it? He asked. The Admiral nodded. You may take as much time as you need. But know that this offer will not be withdrawn. The debt exists, and it will be paid. As Jake left the Admiral's office, his mind was spinning with possibilities. He had been offered the chance to change the course of human history. But what would he ask for? And what would be the consequences of his choice? Jake spent the next few weeks living aboard the Stellar Conquest. He was given quarters that were larger than his entire ship back home. The room had a bed that could have held 4 people, a desk made from some kind of gleaming metal, and a window that looked out into the vast emptiness of space. The Zephyrian crew treated him with careful respect. They did not understand why their Admiral's daughter owed her life to a human, but they knew that Jake was under the Admiral's protection. Nobody bothered him, but nobody was exactly friendly either. Zara visited him every day. She showed him around the massive ship, explaining how their technology worked. The dreadnought was like a floating city with thousands of crew members. It had its own factories, medical centers, and even gardens where they grew food. Your people built all this for war? Jake asked as they walked through one of the weapons bays. War is the engine that drives progress, Zara replied. Without conflict, there would be no reason to improve. Jake watched technicians loading massive energy weapons. Each projectile looked like it could destroy a building. What about progress? For its own sake? Learning things just to understand them better. That is a luxury we cannot afford. Every resource must serve the war effort. Jake found this attitude troubling. The Zephyrians had amazing technology, but they only used it to fight. He wondered what they could accomplish if they turned their skills toward peaceful purposes. During his stay, Jake learned more about the war that had been raging for generations. The Zephyrians and Krillians had been fighting so long that nobody remembered how it started. Each side had grievances against the other. Each side believed they were fighting for survival. Admiral Velther showed Jake star charts covered with battle markers. Red dots marked Zephyrian victories. Blue dots marked defeats. There were thousands of them scattered across dozens of star systems. The war has cost us greatly, the Admiral said one evening as they stood in his command center. Millions of warriors have died. Entire worlds have been devastated. Why not try to make peace? Jake asked. The Admiral looked at him as if he had suggested something impossible. Peace? With the Krillians? They are our enemies. They seek to destroy everything we have built, do they? Or do they just want to protect what they have built? You do not understand the situation, human. This conflict cannot be resolved through negotiation. But Jake could see the weariness in the Admiral's eyes. This was a warrior who had spent his entire life fighting, who had watched friends die and sent young soldiers to their deaths. He was tired of war, even if he would never admit it. One day, the Admiral asked Jake to join him for a private meeting. They went to a secure chamber deep inside the ship, a room protected by multiple layers of security. Inside, the Admiral showed Jake something that made his blood run cold. It was a holographic display of a weapon unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The device was enormous, the size of a small moon. Energy conduits ran across its surface like veins, all leading to a central focusing array that seemed to bend light around itself. "This is the Stellar Forge," the Admiral said quietly. "The ultimate weapon of our empire." Jake stared at the image. "What does it do?" "It can destabilize the nuclear reactions inside a star. When properly deployed, it can cause a sun to go supernova, destroying everything in the system." Jake felt sick. "You would destroy entire solar systems?" "If necessary," the Admiral said. "The weapon has been built but never used. Some in the High Command believe it is time to deploy it against the Krillian homeworld. That would be genocide. You would kill billions of innocent people." "There are no innocent people in war, Jake Morrison. There are only enemies and allies." Jake turned away from the hologram. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because my daughter believes your people might offer a different perspective. She has convinced me to present you with a choice." The Admiral manipulated the controls and the image changed. Now it showed technical specifications, deployment procedures, and security codes. Jake realized he was looking at the complete plans for the most devastating weapon ever created. "I will give you the location of the Stellar Forge," the Admiral said. "I will provide you with the access codes and the technical knowledge needed to either destroy it or claim it for humanity." Jake's mouth went dry. "You would give us that kind of power?" "My daughter owes you her life. I owe you a debt that must be repaid. This is the greatest gift I can offer." Jake stared at the holographic display. With this weapon, humanity could become a major power in the galaxy overnight. They could protect Earth from any threat. They could end wars with the threat of total destruction. They could rule the stars, but Jake also understood what such power would mean. The temptation to use it would be enormous. Humanity was not immune to the corruption that absolute power could bring. How long before some human leader decided that their enemies deserved to be destroyed completely? "There is another option," the Admiral continued. "If you believe the weapon is too dangerous to exist, I will give you the means to destroy it completely. The forge would be eliminated, and no one would ever possess such terrible power again." Jake felt the weight of the decision crushing down on him. Millions of lives hung in the balance. The future of multiple species depended on what he chose to do. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Of course." "Are you tired of fighting?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "I have been a warrior for over 60 years. I have seen more death than any being should witness. But I am a soldier. Jake Morrison, fighting is all I know. What if there was another way? What if we could end this war without using weapons like this?" "Impossible. The hatred between our peoples runs too deep." "Does it? Or have people just forgotten how to talk to each other?" The Admiral's expression showed something that might have been curiosity. "What are you suggesting?" "What if instead of taking the weapon or destroying it, we used it as leverage for peace? What if we could bring both sides to the negotiating table? The Krillians would never agree to talks. They hate us as much as we hate them. But what if they did? What if we could find a way to make them listen?" Jake was thinking out loud now, the ideas forming as he spoke. "You said this weapon has never been used. Both sides know it exists, right?" "Yes, the threat of its deployment has kept the Krillians from launching major offensives against our core worlds. So it already serves as a deterrent. What if we could use that deterrent to force peace instead of continued war?" The Admiral shook his head. "You speak of impossibilities, human. Warriors do not simply put down their weapons because someone asks them to." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But what if they had a good enough reason? What if the alternative was the complete destruction of everything they were fighting for? You would threaten both sides with annihilation?" "No," Jake said, the plan becoming clearer in his mind. "I would offer them hope. A chance to end this war before it destroys everyone involved." The Admiral studied him carefully. "You realize how dangerous this could be? If you fail, if the negotiations collapse, both sides might decide to use their most terrible weapons. The galaxy could burn. It might burn anyway if this war continues, Jake replied. At least this way, there's a chance for something better. Zara appeared in the doorway. Jake had not heard her enter, but she had obviously been listening to their conversation. Father, she said, I believe Jake Morrison is offering us something we have not had in generations. What is that, my daughter? Hope, she said simply. He is offering us hope. The Admiral looked from his daughter to Jake and back again. This plan of yours, human. It would require the cooperation of both our fleets. It would mean trusting our enemies to honor agreements they have broken before. Yes, Jake said. It would mean taking a huge risk for the chance of peace. And if it fails, then we'll be no worse off than we are now. But if it works, Zara said, we might finally end this war. The Admiral was quiet for a long time, staring at the holographic display of the Stellar Forge. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with the weight of command. Very well, Jake Morrison, you have chosen your boon. Instead of power or wealth, you asked for the chance to attempt the impossible. Yes, sir. Then we will see if a human can succeed where warriors have failed. Jake's proposal was met with anger and disbelief from military leaders on both sides. The idea of peace talks seemed impossible after generations of warfare. Many Zephyrian commanders thought the Admiral had lost his mind for trusting a human. The Krillians were equally suspicious when the first messages reached them, but Jake had something that neither side possessed. He was an outsider with nothing to gain from the war's continuation. He had no territory to protect, no ancient grudges to settle, no political ambitions to fulfill. His only goal was to stop the killing. Admiral Velther used his considerable influence to convince the Zephyrian High Command to give Jake's plan a chance. It helped that the Admiral's own war weariness was shared by many of his peers. They had been fighting for so long that victory seemed as distant as ever. Getting the Krillians to agree was more difficult. Their leaders were reptilian, beings with cold, calculating minds. They distrusted anything that seemed too good to be true. But when they learned that the mysterious Stellar Forge would be discussed at the negotiations, their interest was captured. The talks were held at a neutral space station called Haven Point, located in empty space between the two empires. The station had been built by a peaceful trading species that wanted nothing to do with the war. It was perfect for secret negotiations. Jake found himself in the center of the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. He was not a trained negotiator or a skilled politician. He was just a salvage operator who believed that people could solve their problems by talking instead of fighting. The first sessions were disasters. Delegates from both sides hurled accusations and threats across the conference table. Ancient grievances were aired, territorial disputes raged, and more than once the talks nearly collapsed into violence. Jake watched the proceedings with growing frustration. These beings were so focused on their hatred for each other that they could not see past it. Every discussion turned into an argument about who was to blame for the war's beginning. Finally, Jake stood up during one particularly heated exchange. "Stop," he said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the human who had dared to interrupt their important arguments. "I've been listening to you people for 3 days," Jake said. "All you do is talk about the past. You argue about who started what and who did what to whom. But none of that matters anymore," a Krillian delegate hissed angrily. "You cannot dismiss our legitimate concerns, human." "I'm not dismissing anything," Jake replied. "I'm saying that if you keep looking backward, you'll never move forward." He walked to the center of the room where a holographic display showed the current battle lines between the two empires. "Look at this," Jake said, pointing to the display. "Hundreds of star systems caught in the middle of your war. Billions of people who just want to live their lives in peace. How many more have to die before you decide that winning isn't worth the cost?" A Zephyrian general slammed his fist on the table. "The Krillians started this conflict. They must pay for their crimes." "No," said a Krillian commander. "Your empire has been the aggressor from the beginning. We fight only to defend ourselves." Jake looked from one side to the other. "It doesn't matter who started it. What matters is who's going to end it. And how do you propose we do that? Asked the Krillian delegate. Our peoples have been enemies for centuries. By deciding to be something else, Jake said. By choosing to be neighbors instead of enemies, the negotiations continued for weeks. Jake served as a mediator, helping both sides find common ground. It was exhausting work. Every small agreement seemed to lead to 3 new arguments. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. Jake's human perspective proved valuable in unexpected ways. He asked questions that neither side had considered. He suggested solutions that seemed obvious once someone pointed them out. Most importantly, he refused to let either side give up when the talk seemed hopeless. The breakthrough came when Jake proposed something radical. A joint exploration mission to uncharted space. Instead of fighting over existing territory, both empires would work together to discover new worlds and resources. You're asking us to trust our enemies, said Admiral Velther. I'm asking you to stop seeing them as enemies, Jake replied. What if they're just people who want the same things you want? Safety for their families, prosperity for their worlds, a future for their children? Gradually, the negotiators began to see each other differently. They started sharing meals and comparing notes about their respective cultures. They discovered that both species valued honor, courage, and loyalty. They learned that both had suffered losses in the war and wanted it to end. The final agreement was signed on a day that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. The document established ceasefire zones, prisoner exchange programs, and joint exploration initiatives. Most importantly, it created a framework for resolving future disputes through negotiation instead of warfare. Jake stood in the observation deck of Haven Point, watching as ships from both fleets departed peacefully. Zephyrian and Krillian vessels that had been trying to destroy each other for generations were now flying in formation, heading toward unexplored regions of space. Admiral Velther joined him at the viewing window. You have accomplished something I thought impossible, Jake Morrison. You have given warriors a reason to put down their weapons. I just helped them remember what they were fighting for in the first place, Jake said. Their families, their homes, their future. They realized they could protect those things better by working together. The reward that followed was indeed beyond imagination. Jake had not asked for wealth or technology or power. Instead, he had been given something far more precious, the chance to save countless lives and change the course of galactic history. The grateful leaders of both empires offered him titles and honors. He was made an official ambassador between the two species, the first human to hold such a position. They gave him a beautiful new ship equipped with the latest technology from both civilizations, but the real reward was watching former enemies become allies. Jake traveled throughout both empires, helping to establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges. He saw Zephyrian engineers working alongside Krillian scientists to build better ships. He watched their children play together on worlds that had once been battlefields. Zara chose to serve as his military advisor and protector. Her warrior skills were now dedicated to protecting the peace instead of waging war. Together, they visited dozens of worlds, mediating disputes and building bridges between species that had been enemies for generations. You have taught us much about strength, Jake Morrison, Admiral Velther said during a ceremony honoring the first anniversary of the peace agreement. True strength is not the power to destroy, but the courage to save. Jake nodded, watching representatives from dozens of species mingling peacefully in the Great Hall. I just did what anyone would do. No, Zara said, joining them. You did what a human would do. You saw a problem and found a way to fix it. You showed mercy when others would have shown force. You offered hope when others saw only despair. Years passed, and the peace held. The joint exploration fleets discovered new worlds rich in resources, solving many of the territorial disputes that had fueled the original conflict. Trade between the empires flourished, bringing prosperity to worlds that had known only war. Jake often thought about the moment when he had first seen Zara's damaged fighter spinning in the debris field. He had made a simple choice to save a life, expecting nothing in return. That choice had led to consequences he could never have imagined, standing on the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, watching a mixed fleet of exploration ships heading toward uncharted space. Jake reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. He had started as a simple salvage operator picking through the wreckage of war. Now he was an ambassador helping to build peace across the galaxy. The real reward had not been the ship or the title or the recognition. It had been the knowledge that one person could make a difference, that a simple act of kindness could ripple outward across the stars, transforming enemies into friends and turning the darkness of war into the light of hope. "Ready for the next mission?" Zara asked, appearing beside him. Jake smiled, looking out at the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. Always. As their ship moved toward the next crisis, the next opportunity to build understanding between different species, Jake carried with him the lesson he had learned. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest acts of compassion. He had saved an alien warrior and been given a reward beyond imagination, the chance to save the galaxy itself.